Oh, I didn't know we were going formal today. Oh, I'm sorry, Pablo. I thought it'd be funny today because we're talking about marriage. What is up, you guys? Whoa, Pablo. That's my line. You gotta get your own line, man. Okay, we'll cut that. Hey, you all. We're back with the 3 to Love show, and today we're going to be talking a little bit more about marriage. And I think you told me that you may have a little story to start us out. Sarah was flipping through her wedding album, and she was trying to bring about some positivity on this dark day. And reminiscing on her wedding always brought happiness because it was the last day that Tom looked at her walking up that aisle like it was the most beautiful thing that he had ever seen. And so she wondered, where did that love go? You know, what had happened to their marriage to get to this terrible state? Sarah had gotten everything she wanted. They had 3 beautiful children, and she lived in a nice house, drove a nice car, but the passion wasn't there. You know, she didn't have the body that she used to, but she thought there was something deeper, for the reason being that, you know, Tom just didn't look at her like he used to. Tom was sitting at a local bar having a beer by himself, which was not like him, but he was miserable. His marriage had fallen apart, and he wondered what had happened to him and Sarah. Because he had gotten everything he wanted in life. He had beautiful children, and he had a very successful career, and he was wondering what had happened to him and Sarah because he just didn't see her the same way. And he wondered where he had gone wrong and why he didn't feel like making the effort anymore. Because even when he tried, you know, with flowers or a date night, it just wasn't there anymore. Now I'm just sad. Pablo, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you sad, but it makes me sad to read the statistics of where marriage is today. And if you do read those statistics, you'll find that half of marriages are still ending in divorce, and that most aren't happy. And Harvard did a study. They started, it was 70, 80 years ago, I think now, and they wanted to know, what is the number one indicator of happiness in someone's life? And it was a very long study, and they interviewed all sorts of people, and they tracked them throughout their entire lives. And the answer was abundantly clear. And it was that good relationships keep us happier and healthy, both mentally and physically. And by far and large, the most important relationship in someone's life is their marriage. And so when we look at the health of marriage in the United States today, and it probably goes to say for around the world, they're in worse shape than ever, and they're falling apart more every day. And that's what makes me sad, and that's what I think I'm up here fighting for is, you know, what's going wrong? Because as marriage continues to worsen, so do people's happiness, and families break apart, and, you know, it's so fundamental to, you know, the health of our society, because the family is the building block of society. And it's the first place that we learn how to love. And so I think what's happened to marriage is that the same thing that's happened to love is we push God out of that equation. We start to define things for ourselves, and when that happens with love, it also happens with marriage. I mean, I know this may seem kind of like a basic question, but like, why do people get married? When a priest asks a man and a woman coming into the church why they want to get married, what do you think the number one answer is? Because they're in love. Yeah, that they're in love, that they love each other. And I bet if you asked any couple getting married, they'd probably say something similar. But that couple is already in love, and I question what guarantee getting married gives you the ability to love that person for the rest of your life. Because scientifically speaking, it does not at all. In fact, your chances of breaking up and hating that person are actually quite high. And another common answer is that, well, we want to be together for the rest of our lives. I don't think you need marriage to do that either. Because you can move in and live with the person and be in proximity with them without getting married. And maybe another answer is that you want to have kids, you want to start a family. And I think that's great. You should get married. But again, you don't need a marriage to do that. So I think what's happening is people are deciding that marriage is for them because, hey, my parents did it, my friends are doing it. It's a part of life. It's, I want to have kids and I want to make this, official, and I want to do it the right way. And I think that's a good thing. I'm glad people are still wanting to get married, but I think we're having the purpose of marriage stay on the surface as it's just something I want, and not answering the question of really why marriage exists in the first place and why I am getting married.
I mean, most of the marriages I know of do end up unhappy or divorced, and I think that is sad. Why do you think this popular culture's way of marriage is failing people today?
I think the problem is that the culture's message is one of, you can make yourself happy. And to do whatever's necessary to look out for yourself. And we see so much in the area of self-empowerment, self-love and self-fulfillment. And that's so different than the Christian life. And so I think the modern marriage is two coming together with that same mentality, but instead of, well, I'm just worried about my happiness, I also need to make sure that my spouse is happy. We hear the terms such as happy wife, happy life. Or a wife just hoping that she can do things to please her husband and that will keep the marriage afloat. And all these things are the wrong way to look at it. And I think what's happened is as we push God out of the marriage, we have found ourselves in complete control over all aspects of our life. And that's two couples coming together and saying, okay, our love is whatever we make it, and we're going to decide when we have sex. We're going to decide where and how we get married. We're going to use, contraception to figure out exactly when we want kids. There's no decision making involved with God. It's just them. And they come to find later in the life that like, wow, where did our happiness go? This whole game of satisfying each other and, building each other up with the family and the house and the car and the image that we post on social media and, hey, you're great, I'm great, we're great. And it tends to not be able to fulfill itself. And I don't say these things like, hey, if you're doing something I mentioned that you're going to have a terrible marriage. And I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that the culture's way of, and I know this because I read the stories and I hear them that, it's not working. And we'll go in the next video why I think sex should be saved for marriage. And, when you look at something like moving in together, the scientific studies show that you have a huge chance of divorce, much higher than if you waited. And, those are just the studies speaking for themselves. But my point here is that there's got to be something outside of the two that's going to bring them out of their ego and realize that love again is outside of them and God has a plan for marriage.
Well, one of the things I'm looking forward to is to hear you talk a little bit more about, what is the Catholic Church's plan for marriage?
One thing that's always confused me is that when two people go up and get married and they promise one another that I will be with you, all the days of our lives, and that I will love you till the end and be with you forever, yet divorce is on the table. And I don't know how these things can possibly go together when there's a rather easy option, sure painful, but rather easy option to just walk away from a marriage. And I think that's what we find in most marriages, is that people quit and they want not something new, but someone new. You know, if you look at the culture, who they praise, who do we idolize, who do we talk about, who do we look up to? And it's often the celebrities. And the celebrities have the worst track record for marriage. But we make it such a glamour and a show, and the wedding day is what we see in the marriage. But anyone who's been married knows that, marriage is really hard, and it's not all glamour. So the Catholic Church has quite the different plan for marriage that doesn't have the option for divorce, unless it's under very, very special circumstances. But the Catholic Church says, well, it doesn't take 2 to get married, it takes 3 to get married. And it's a vocation to put God in every detail of your marriage. And it's not just some contract between 2 people, but it's a covenant with God as a third acting element. And it is not by chance, but it's by God's will that 2 have come together for God's purpose. And that God wants to be involved intimately with those 2 people, and to bring the love not in each other, but through each other. And so it's this vocation that, I take very seriously, and I know Katia does too, that we have realized that we are not just here to please one another, but to do God's will. And that means getting Him involved in our sex life, in our life with children, and with everything else when it comes to our vocation of marriage. And that's what I'll talk about with my experience about why I don't see the Catholic Church as offering, these rules for you to follow, and then you get married and then go off and do your own thing. But it allows for, the enabling of me to de-egotize myself, to say my life's not about just getting what I want, but it's about ordering love towards God and helping me love Katia more.
So Brian, somebody commented on the last video, which thank you for doing so. If you could please talk about your experience with marriage, they would really love to hear about that.
Yeah, so one of the things that I know Katia and I were both doing when we were dating is we had marriage in mind, because that was our goal when we were dating. Is we knew what we wanted, and we knew that it was going to be hard as things progressed because of the distance, and we were so attracted to each other, and the culture is always feeding us these lies that do whatever makes you happy, fulfill your desires. And of course I had physical desires, and I was tempted to do certain things, but we waited. We did the denial of ourselves, and we said, no, we are going to save sex for marriage, and we are going to wait to move into each other, because I always wanted to do what was best for Katia, and she wanted to do the same for me. And I trusted that God had the best plan, because I was proving to Him that I wasn't marrying Katia just for her body, but I was primarily marrying her for her soul. And I knew that even before marriage, if I truly was going to make her my wife, that I would need to look out for her best interest. And until I was able to call her my wife and put a ring on her finger, I didn't deserve to have her body. And that I would allow that gift to be given to me, just as I was ready to give that gift to her. And we'll talk more about the chastity in the next video. But what I've experienced in the Catholic marriage so far, even though it hasn't even been a year yet, is that it has brought so much joy, and it's also brought a lot of struggle, because I have grown up so intertwined in the culture of trying to make myself happy, and I know that's a losing game. And so while I know the struggle of trying to de-egotize myself now has already bringing about great joy, and I know that it's going to help me love Katia more, because the closer I get to God, the more I love her. And if you can remember that triangle of God at the top and us at the other sides, is that it rings so true in marriage. Because when we do pray together and we go to church together, I've only experienced that our love intensifies through the Spirit. And what's amazing is that I have never, ever heard of or met a couple, a truly Catholic couple that does these things, that go to church together, that pray together, that live the sacraments together, have ever had an unhappy marriage that has ended in anything but overflowing love. And Kathy and I have these people that we look up to, and we say, yeah, we want that. And so we are going to follow God's plan for marriage. And I'm so excited to see, how much joy that brings.
I know I love to ask you for some advice, and I think some other people would love to hear maybe a quick piece of advice for getting married.
To all the men and women out there looking for love and to want to get married, I would challenge you for what you think, complete beauty and complete goodness is when you're looking for that other person, because men and women have these dreams and these desires in their heads that they want to fulfill. And I think when it comes to men, I can't speak as much for the women, but, men fantasize about, maybe the physical aspects of a woman, and, that beauty that you may dream about, whether it's in a wedding dress or lingerie, it's what you think will satisfy your heart. And I just wanted to share a quick story about beauty and what I hold in my sight is that, when I fell in love with Katya, we were in the church and I saw her, I just looked over and she was praying. She had her eyes closed and she was, hands folded, and that image of her loving God, that's what made me fall in love with her. I could have just fallen in love with her body, but I know that would have been temporary. And so I was primarily loving her because of her soul, because of what she understood of where love came from, where we first received our love, and what that love was going to be for the possible future of marriage, of where we would build our foundation. And that was the same vision I had in that church. And the Catholic Church today is, I put my love and my faith and my trust not in Katya, but in God.
Okay, make sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Can I say that? Okay. And thank you for watching, and please share this with someone if you think they would love to watch it. And we're going to see you next time on our last part of Love, Marriage, and Sex. Pablo out.